This is 5 on 20 News, where the news is hot as hell and the newscasters are chilling with Zaina Peterson
and Joel Foster. It's Friday, April 21st, and we're coming to you live from the Creative Tucson studio in downtown Tucson.
First, let's talk local headlines.
Arizona's unemployment rate dropped to 5% in March, with experts saying that the state is showing robust hiring, especially in restaurants and bars. About 20,000 people got new jobs in the first 3 months of this year, compared with about 5,000 per month at this time last year, according to Doug Walls of the Arizona's Office of Economic Opportunity. Tucson's unemployment rate has dipped even lower to 4.4% in March, from 4.7% in February, which is well below the national average. Walls said this is mainly due to strong job growth in the leisure and hospitality industry. These sectors also led the state as a whole, with over 19,000 jobs being added in Arizona from the leisure and hospitality industries. While the unemployment rate is low in Tucson, the rate of job growth is lower than the national average. Tucson added 2,400 jobs throughout the last year, with a growth rate of only 0.6%. This is in comparison to 2.7% in the Phoenix area, 2% in Yuma, and 1.8% in Prescott. One really bright spot for the Tucson economy is that the higher minimum wage does not seem to appear to be impacting job growth. The leisure and hospitality industries are the most common jobs that pay minimum wage, yet this was the highest growing industry since the law went into place. Data also shows that Arizonans are earning more, as pay grew by 4.1% in the state compared to 2.8% nationally. But Governor Doug Ducey says these higher earnings will only breed a dependence on higher pay, which is antithetical to American values.
The Arizona House passed amended legislation yesterday that allows electronic billboards in some areas of Mojave County, where they were previously banned. The ban was intended to protect the state's astronomy industry and keep the skies clear, but Senate Bill 1114 allows the electronic billboards within 40 miles of Bullhead City, which was prohibited. According to state law, electronic billboards are allowed only in central and southwest parts of Arizona. The measure was introduced by our state's official wife beater, Sonny Borelli, who reintroduced the legislation after a first attempt last year. The bill now will be sent to Governor Ducey's desk to be signed. Borelli looks forward to looking up into the Arizona sky and seeing the majestic sights of Hot Girls and Cheap Drinks Canyon.
Beautiful this time of year. All right, the Arizona legislature approved another amended measure. This one intends to protect patients from receiving surprise medical bills from out-of-network providers. Senate Bill 1441 will assign arbitrators to settle disputes for consumers. It applies to patients who visit in-network facilities and get billed for $1,000 or more from out-of-network providers. The bill was introduced by Republican Senator Debbie Lesko, who based the legislation on a similar bill from Texas. However, opponents say that it won't solve the problem and will instead add more complexity into the already complex healthcare billing system. Regardless, the bill will be sent to Governor Ducey's desk for signing without ever really being understood by anyone. Next up, Lesko will propose a bill that creates new designations such as kind of in-network, not really out-of-network, and sometimes in-network but other times out-of-network. You know, it's really complicated and hard to explain. Just pay your damn bill and shut up. She says the new bill will help simplify the system.
A recent report shows that immigration and customs enforcement officers aren't doing a great job of keeping track of immigrants facing deportation. An inspector general's report said that those immigrants who are released from detention after being targeted for deportation are falling through the cracks. Part of the problem, according to the report, is that agents are being expected to handle caseloads outside of their abilities. The report said that the agents are assigned thousands of cases at a time and are so bogged down that the agency isn't working efficiently. As a result, agents don't have enough time to make sure travel and identity documents are gathered for people ordered back to their home countries. It says that, quote, ICE will likely not be able to keep up with growing numbers of deportable immigrants. In response, ICE agents were not able to explain why caseloads were so heavy or how staffing decisions and assignments were made. Going out on a limb here, but it might have to do with talking Tate Reed, who makes promises he can't keep. Authors of the report suggested 5 changes to ICE policy. These include requiring ICE to come up with a plan to appropriately staff the agency, which ICE said that they are working on. Since January, ICE has arrested more than 21,000 people, an increase of about 40% compared to some time posted last year. Trump has proposed hiring 10,000 new agents, though he hasn't outlined which positions these would be. Asked about the specific position, Trump said that he would hire for, quote, all the good ones, great jobs, really great jobs, and run by a great guy. Did you see the amount of people that came to inauguration? Beautiful.
So eloquent. Technology giant Intel turned on the biggest solar-powered carport in Arizona yesterday. The carport features 30,000 solar panels that generate 7.7 megawatts of energy for the Intel building in Chandler. This could power about 1,100 households per year. Marty Sedler, Director of Global Utilities and Infrastructure, said that the move will give them more control over their utilities and the associated costs. The solar carport is part of Intel's commitment to producing cleaner energy. Sedler says that the solar panels will also help cool cars that sit under the port, which means less air conditioning use, which benefits the company's employees. Hearing about the new carport, Republican and solar hater Debbie Lesko plans to submit a bill to move the sun away from Intel's headquarters. Ooh, Monty Burns.
It's Earth Day tomorrow, and Tucson is among the 500 cities worldwide that will be participating in a March for Science event. While the marching portion of Saturday's festivities had to be cut due to prohibitive costs of blocking the streets and hiring off-duty police officers and medics, there will still be a rally from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at El Presidio Park. The event will be equal parts of the political demonstration and educational event. 20 or more science and educational organizations will have booths on site for people to explore and learn more about the Tucson diverse science communities. The rally will also feature speakers from the scientific community, including representatives from the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum, Citizens Climate Lobby, and Tucson Climate March. Mayor Jonathan Rothschild and Congressman Roy Grijalva will also be speaking at the event. Thousands of Tucsonans are expected to attend that, what should be an insightful and inspiring event. More information is available at marchforsciencetucson.org. March for Science events will continue across the globe throughout the day, culminating in the Sunday morning. Trump's tweet dismissing the whole thing as fake news, Chinese conspiracy funded by George Soros, and intend to violate the First Amendment rights.
That's Soros money. And I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about the program you're watching right now. Here at 5 on 20, we're undertaking a new kind of citizen journalism. We're going to give you the news as we see it, and we want more people to speak up with us. We need writers, hosts, anchors, camera people, sound people, the whole gamut. The times require a new way of informing ourselves. So join us. Do it. Do it now. Email us at info@creativetucson.org to get involved. And if you think there's a story we're missing, a person we should interview, an upcoming event we should cover, or have any news tips for us, shoot us an email at info@creativetucson.org. We're here for you, and we want to cover all stories from all points of view. So don't be strangers. Now, in national and international news.
Another day, another executive order. Trump is now scraping the bottom of the barrel for things he can sign, and that barrel is apparently made of Chinese steel. Yesterday's executive order calls for the Commerce Department to study the economic effects of steel imports into the U.S., an act that probably didn't require a photo session. Trump said that the steel is critical to both our economy and our military, and we can't afford to be dependent upon other foreign countries. The foreign country he's alluding is to China, who represents about half of the world's steel making. Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross said an almost 20% increase to improve in steel imports in the first quarter had a serious impact on the domestic economy. Ross said that although in the U.S. has more than 150 anti-dumping orders on steel products, this hasn't solved the problem. He said that if a problem continues, American steel producers won't be able to continue investment, research and development, and would reduce steel industry jobs. Currently, the U.S. steel industries is working at only 71% of capacity, which imports accounting for about a quarter of the market. But China said in January that there have already been hit extreme tariffs on the exports from opposing countries. Trump says that this has nothing to do with China, but Trump says a lot of things. Remember, just last week, Chinese President Xi Jinping was eating cake with his president. Now he's back to being thrown under the bus, which is made with U.S. steel.
At least there's that. 2/3 of Americans support gun control in public places, according to a recent study by a group of leading public health researchers. The study, conducted by researchers at Harvard University, Northeastern University, and Johns Hopkins University, found that 64% out of 4,000 respondents thought that guns shouldn't be allowed in 9 different public places. These included campuses, bars, government buildings, sports stadiums, retail stores, and service settings such as barbershops and places of worship. Only 9.4 respondents supported allowing guns into all 9 of these public places, with restaurants, service settings, and retail stores being the only places where more than 30% said guns should be allowed. Because nothing says a romantic evening out quite like a Glock 9mm, right? Not surprisingly, support for guns in public was higher among gun owners than those that didn't own a gun. It also varied by county, with the South being more supportive of permitting guns in public places. Also not surprising. But what is surprising is the number of supporters has increased since the group issued the same survey 20 years ago. In 1999, only 4% of respondents said they supported guns on college campuses, while 22% now approve. The study's authors said this could have to do with recent laws that allow guns on campuses, which would make sense. They also say that open carry gun laws have relaxed over the years. Back in 2000, Vermont was the only state that allowed its residents to carry a gun without a permit. Now, a dozen states have scrapped permitting requirements to carry a gun, including Arizona. Also, all 50 states now have some form of concealed carry law, which wasn't the case when the group first gave out the survey in 1999. The results also revealed that 25% of the survey representatives were shot while issuing the survey. It's hard out there.
The governor of Louisiana has declared a state of emergency due to the state's disappearing coastline. By declaring the emergency, Governor John Bel Edwards is trying to bring national attention to the issue and attract a quicker federal response. Good luck with that. In the declaration, the document states that half of the state's population lives on the coast, where the pace of erosion is getting faster. Edwards says that if no further action is taken, that 2,250 miles of coastline Louisiana will be lost in the next 50 years. He emphasized that this lost land will impact industries in the state, such as energy, maritime transportation, and trades. Louisiana has a plan to implement over 100 restoration protection projects, such as rebuilding marshes and barrier islands, which serve to protect the land from hurricanes. On Wednesday, a state panel approved a 50-year, $50 billion plan, which relies on money from settling to the BP oil spill in 2010. Edwards is asking the president to declare the erosion to the coast in a national emergency and asked if he consider legislation to speed up federal permitting and environmental review. In response, the president said he'd get right on it, then proceed to take a nap under the Oval Office desk.
Sleepy.
Right.
He needs his rest.
He needs to hurry.
A Russian court has banned Jehovah's Witnesses, claiming that they're an extremist group. The court also ordered the group to disband, and the Russian state will seize all property and assets owned by the religious sect. Jehovah's Witnesses have faced persecution in Russia over the past few years, with members having been arrested and having property seized. But the ruling goes beyond past measures by completely banning the practice. The TASS news agency, run by the Russian state, claimed that the Jehovah's Witnesses were warned last October for, quote, extremist activities, and said that the group had failed to eliminate these violations within the required deadline. Russian Justice Ministry attorney Svetlana Borisova said that the witnesses, quote, pose a threat to the rights of the citizens, public order, and public security. But Jehovah officials say that there is no legal basis for the ban, and it's motivated by prejudice and hatreds towards a social group. The crackdown comes as part of Russia's broadly defined anti-extremism laws that propose to battle terrorism in the country. However, critics say that officials use the law to crack down on any group that they disagree with. An official from the Jehovah's Witnesses said that their religion demands pacifism, which are contrary to the charges of extremism. They said that the extremism law is being misused and that the Russian government misunderstands the religion. After a bitter back and forth, Russia officials finally admitted that they just got sick of pretending to not be home when the Jehovah's Witnesses came knocking at their door. That's harsh.
Right. A video has emerged allegedly showing Egyptian soldier killing unarmed detainees. The 2016 video, which is still unverified, comes from northern Sinai region of the country, where an anti-terrorism offensive is underway. The footage shows military officers staging a fake gunfight to make the killings look legitimate. Another scene shows the soldiers lying dead bodies in a row. The footage was shown on Mekamalin TV, a station that supports the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood. In another scene, a blindfolded man is interrogated. Then shot in the head at point-blank range. Another man is shot while he lies on the ground. Minutes later, a rifle appears by his side. Movie magic. Egyptian military officials have not yet responded to the footage, but a pro-government media source said that the video was a fabrication. However, last year, the military released footage from the same time period in which they claimed that they eliminated a, quote, dangerous terrorist cell. They must have forgot to mention that the dangerous terrorist cell was unarmed. For years, Egypt has been accused of human rights violations in the name of fighting terrorism. terrorism. The Muslim Brotherhood has often been the target of these crackdowns, but the group claims to be a legitimate political group, that the Egyptian government is simply trying to keep them out of power. It didn't help that a separate video was released showing Egyptian President Sisi and President Trump taking turns giving swirls to Muslim Brotherhood members in the White House bathroom.
Tough one. With the swamp nice and thick in the White House, Republicans in Congress are now just openly selling their influence. According to documents obtained by The Intercept and the Center for Media and Democracy, the National Republican Committee is trading key access to Congress in exchange for cold, hard cash. The documents explain that, in return for campaign contributions, citizens will receive invitations to special events where they get to meet with congressional staff. This includes chiefs of staff, leadership staffers, and committee staffers. Another program requiring a $5,000 donation gives members monthly briefings by, quote, House leadership staff, and receptions with leadership and committee staff. Michael Beckel, research manager for Issue 1, said that this is the, quote, blatant buying and selling of access, and said that any reasonable person would conclude that this violates all congressional ethics laws. Key word here, reasonable person. While money in exchange for access isn't a new concept, the documents show a much more open version of the patronage system. This harkens back to the 1920s when Boss Tweed and other powerful figures controlled Congress with campaign money. So in that way, the Trump administration is turning back the clock to when America was great. They just failed to mention that it's great if you have lots of money to donate to a political campaign.
This was Zaina Peterson
and Joel Foster for 5 on 20 News.
Next up, Joel gives us a look at this week's Media Vortex.
Welcome to This Week in Mediocrity, where we present you with all the best in the worst of the media. I'm your host, Joel Foster, and I heard they have a job opening at Fox News. Relatively speaking, it wasn't too busy of a week. There was the usual threats by North Korea, Syria, and Iraq continued to burn, and it looks like we will probably go to war in Somalia too. But we're all used to this by now. It's crazy how quickly we become desensitized to the possible end of humankind. At this point, I just kind of want them to get it over with. But the big news in media this week was the sacking of Bill O'Reilly. The only thing your racist grandfather likes more than slot machines and complaining about the weather. O'Reilly got canned by Fox News for grabbing cans. O'Reilly was let go after dozens of women came forward alleging that Big Bad Bill sexually harassed them. It's got to be the name. The New York Times reported that Fox had shelled out millions in settlements to the woman over the years and kept it all hush-hush. Of course, Fox News stuck with him for a while because he's by far the most watched cable news show in history. But when over 50 advertisers pulled out of the show, Fox had a sudden rush of empathy. Not for the woman, of course, but for themselves. Is self-empathy a thing? I don't even know. Now keep in mind, Bill O'Reilly wasn't kicked off for saying things like this.
Cocaine dealer. And you kind of look like one a little bit.
No, I would never say that about a man, would I? No, not me.
White people don't force black people to have babies out of wedlock.
I didn't hear a word she said. I was looking at the James Brown wig.
Maria, when you hear me try to talk, that means you have to button it up, with all due respect. Many women who get pregnant are blasted out of their minds when they have sex.
You know, you're snorting out there, and I want you to knock it off.
You basically said to yourself, I'm still going to support the guy, even though his economic policies haven't worked for African Americans and pretty much anyone else.
Why are you only seeing me as an African American, Bill?
Well, do it live. Do it live.
We'll do it live! In fact, he was celebrated for his daily dose of starry-eyed racism. Like I said before, this guy was the highest-rated cable news host in history. Think about that. So why did Fox really fire him? Well, Rush Limbaugh called it a conspiracy by the left wing of the US. Here he is explaining the visions of his Percocet-addled head while he does his best Fonzie pose.
Why did the New York Times do the story? Out of the blue, they want to do a story on O'Reilly or Fox with whatever number of payouts to women over. Where'd this come from? Nothing just comes out of the ether, folks. They're not sitting there at the New York Times waiting for ideas to pop into their heads, and then 1 second some report, you know what? I think I'm going to do a story on what a sexual harasser Bill O'Reilly is. That's not how it happens. This is the reason that it starts in the New York Times is important is because the second aspect is the corporate intrigue that I mentioned that is also behind this. And it's, I don't work there, so I guess it's not any quicksand, but there is a battle for power going on there between sons of Rupert Murdoch and Rupert. And they are not conservatives, my friends.
How could they? Oh yeah, the money. No, I'm pretty sure they're conservative until it messes with their money. Then they're anything you want. Marxist, Hare Krishna. If they would make a buck off of it, they would be starting every show with Allahu Akbar tomorrow. But it wasn't just Rush Limbaugh concocting evil left-wing conspiracies. Bill O'Reilly's own lawyers released a statement Wednesday alleging the same type of plot. Marky Kazowitz said that Bill O'Reilly has been, quote, subjected to a brutal campaign of character assassination that is unprecedented in post-McCarthyist America. This firm has uncovered evidence that the smear campaign is being orchestrated by far-left organizations bent on destroying O'Reilly for political and financial reasons. You might be asking what the evidence is. Well, here's the best part. Quote, that evidence will be put forth shortly, and it is irrefutable. Wait, is Donald Trump his lawyer? You expect the next line to say, Bill O'Reilly is a really great, not gropey at all guy, and Hillary is behind all of this, and the inauguration was the largest crowd ever recorded in history. But Bill O'Reilly wasn't the only right-wing gasbag having a hard time this week. Conservative columnist Ann Coulter made the headlines yet again when her scheduled talk at the University of California at Berkeley was canceled. If you've never heard of Ann Coulter, she's the girl that says she hated that movie you liked so much just to see her reaction. And she says things like this.
Why, as that man just said, why aren't we getting the names of recently paroled criminals? People with gun permits, by definition, do not have criminal records. Why can't we get the criminal records? No, we can't get that. Why can't we get a record of women who have had abortions? They get money from Planned Parenthood. They get money from Medicare, from Medicaid. Much of this is their tax subsidies. I think, mothers might want to know what other women on their street might be willing to murder a child. How about the list of rent-controlled apartments in New York? And by the way, if we're producing lists even of gun permit owners, I want them for Manhattan. I want to know how many rich liberals with their bodyguards have gun permits. The News Journal, or Journal News, by the way, as I'm sure your viewers know, they hired a couple of armed guards because they got, some mean emails. Armed guards. Can we get the armed guards' names and addresses?
At the end, it sounded like her words were actually trying to run away from her, like, I don't want to be any part of this. But on Thursday, Berkeley released a statement that they would be canceling the talk by Coulter due to safety concerns over their students and for Coulter herself. Remember, 2 months ago, the Berkeley campus was where a minor riot erupted when another right-wing antagonizer, Milo Yiannopoulos, appeared for a talk. It's reasonable to assume that the school didn't want a repeat of that incident. Then on Thursday, Berkeley said that they had found a new location with better security and set a new date for May 2nd. But Raggedy Ann wasn't having it. She vomited a bunch of tweets, starting with this odd one, writing that, quote, Berkeley press release, Southern Sheriff rescinds cancellation of black vote. They'll just have to take the absurd literacy test first. All right, let's forget that she misspelled cancellation. But can someone please explain the concept of a metaphor to this lady? How is blocking a multi-millionaire TV guest from speaking the same thing as denying minorities the vote? But Coulter didn't leave us enough time to even think about the question, because less than 3 minutes later, she announced that she's refusing the new date and would remain speaking on the original April 27th date. It turns out that May 2nd lands on finals week at Berkeley, and there wouldn't be any classes on that day, which Coulter told us in her 5th tweet in under 10 minutes. Radio host Mark Levin had some strong words about the decision and a pretty drastic and really expensive solution. Let's hear him.
This broke an hour ago, a headline, Washington Compost, Berkeley cancels conservative firebrand Ann Coulter speech over fears of more violent protests. William Wan, after riots and violent protests in and around their campus during the past 3 months, officials at the University of California at Berkeley said today that the school is canceling a planned speech by conservative firebrand Ann Coulter because of safety concerns. In a letter to a campus Republican group that invited Coulter to speak, university officials said they made the decision to cancel Coulter's appearance after assessing the violence that flared on campus in February and so forth and so on. Now, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you what needs to be done about this. President Trump should federalize the California National Guard. He should send his Attorney General Jeff Sessions in there to walk Ann Coulter onto the Berkeley campus so she can give her speech. I'm not even a fan of Ann Coulter these days. But so what? Has nothing to do with that.
Ann Coulter is so 2005. I'm not even into her. I'm into Tucker these days. Really? Is that the one thing we want our president to bravely stand up for and spend our tax money doing it? Couldn't he just send a stern letter instead? It's not Brown versus the Board of Education. It's a dumb TV personality whose crowd would be made up mostly of people who hate her and want to yell things at her. And it's not as though liberals are cheering the school's decision. Robert Reich, a professor at UC Berkeley and a former Secretary of Labor for Bill Clinton, says that the school made a mistake. He says that they should have let her speak. And the crazy thing is I think he's right. For as much as I can't stand Ann Coulter, I hate even more to see her empowered by this stuff. Bill O'Reilly, Ann Coulter, and Donald Trump all thrive off of opposition. The worst thing we can do is fight against them. It's like throwing gasoline into a fire to try and put it out. When we stand back and let them do their thing, they end up destroying themselves anyway. Look at how many chances Bill O'Reilly had, and he still blew it. We let Donald Trump become our president, and look what happened. At least after he's done being president, which will probably be in a couple months, we'll probably never hear from Trump again, hopefully because he's in jail. But imagine if he didn't win. We'd be subjected to him forever. And with our luck, he'd end up being like an immortal vampire, so the tweets would go on for infinity. It's important to hear opposing points of view, partly just because it's good to get out of your bubble, but also because you learn how to debate these people. If you don't know what they're saying, it's really hard to put up a decent argument. So I guess in this case, I'll have to side with Ann Coulter, as crazy as that sounds. I hope she comes down to Berkeley on April 27th, and I hope she gets booed and yelled at and subjected to all the free speech that she says she supports. All right, that's all the time I have for today. Enjoy your weekend and enjoy your free speech, and remember, much like food poisoning, it comes out both ways. Michigan legalized switchblades, by the way. See you later.